So it's been a very productive day and a half. At least that's what I feel. I first want to apologize. This morning I was bouncing like a ball between the different sessions. And I'm sure that there are some speakers or chairs of the group that felt insulted that I walked out in the middle of something. And I just want to apologize for that. I felt mildly schizophrenic all morning. But they were very rich. When we were initially looking at the agenda for the meeting, one of the things we talked about was how long to have the conference. I'll be honest, I would have loved to have listened to every single presentation, because every one I listened to, I was getting something out of. And I think people really did a nice job. I have a couple observations. I took about 10 minutes, went back up to my room after going around, and I wrote up some observations. It's a grain of salt into this ocean of sustainability and certification. So, next slide there, Joe. As I said, there were fertile, rich conversations and presentations. A number of people have said to me 3 years ago, could this kind of discussion happen here in China? What that seems to point to is that there is something big going on here. I'm not going to try to say what that big thing is, but something is going on. Clearly this is about leadership. The people that are in this room, I happen to think most of you are leaders. And that, however, brings with it a burden on your shoulders, because actions speak louder than words. My own staff knows that I have very high expectations of them as leaders. So what matters is not what we've done so far, but what we take from here and move forward and do. I'm not going to propose another conference at this point. So Michael and Shubin, you can rest easy. I'm not going to do that. But I do think that we have to think about our own accountability as leaders and how we take these things forward. A couple of speakers used the word vision. Vision's a word it's a fun word for me. And in terms of vision, I think there are three elements in particular that I was trying to think through. And one is on sustainability and all of the multiple values that sustainable means, because it means a lot of different things. Accountability. In other words, that we say we're going to take actions and then we actually take them. And lastly, transparency. And that transparency may be in the actions we take or it may be in reporting back on the actions we are taking or have taken. Next slide. What was striking to me was the number of relationships that exist here. A word that I often hear at international meetings these days is partnerships. I hesitate to use that word because you have organizations that interact with each other that may have some kind of partnership, but in many cases those are partnerships or relationships built on common objectives. And if there's a failure to work towards those objectives, then there'll be problems in those relationships. So as much as I want to be politically correct and say, yes, these are nice partnerships, I think most important is that these are accountable relationships, and that people need to demonstrate progress and demonstrate positive change, and that will build more. Numerous flexible approaches. The question now is how we mainstream. Lots of people with great ideas and innovation going on out there. But what's striking to me is that there's some suggestion that in the paper markets we might be, in fact, mainstream. I would suggest that in terms of construction materials and in furniture, we're not yet. Despite the fact that there was an ad that went out across the United States with Walmart and FSC certified furniture last week. I mean, that's great stuff, but I still think we aren't quite there yet for many, many reasons. A lot of questions, it seemed to me, and this happened in both the presentations, discussions, as well as private conversations on the role of government. and not just here in China, but globally, but particularly here in China, and people feeling that indeed China, as compared to a few other countries in the region, which will remain unnamed, that there is some progress here in China in relation to the government's attitude and actions in this regard. But I also heard people requesting things of government. Some of those were just repeated. One of them was continuing support for certification. Another one was taxes and other policies that will, in essence, foster sustainability. I'm rarely in a meeting where businesses and government are that somebody's not talking about how to reduce their taxes or do some kind of benefits. But the point is that those are a critical piece in the puzzle sometimes, and we need to see how government can create policies that in fact do favor sustainability. And I say that to every government in every part of the world. Procurement policies. Governments are huge consumers of products, from paper to furniture to you name it. And if a government says that we in fact are going to prioritize the procurement of materials that come from more sustainable operations, that sends an enormously important message. So I think the question is, and that's something that is under the control of government directly. It can make those kinds of decisions. We've seen that. Europe, there's an indication that in 2009, in fact, the demand for certified products will become part of the procurement requirements in Europe. We've seen numerous countries, including Japan, that are now incorporating these kinds of policies. So we know that the role of government can be positive. I had the good fortune of being in Oaxaca, Mexico, where the state governor in Mexico said, we're going to buy our school desks for our kids in our schools and make them right here from certified florists in the state of Oaxaca in Mexico. That is an incredibly positive message to be sending on many different levels. And lastly, of course, people are looking for dollars or euros or RMB to support their operations. No surprise there, but guess what? Investments are necessary in sustainability.